What's up, everyone? So today I'm going to be covering creatine and hair loss. I'm going to cover the actual truth behind all of this and cover some of the most recent data we have today. So I'm going to get right into it. So creatine and hair loss. Some people will anecdotally report hair loss with creatine, and what has that led? Some of these mainstream, influencers within the fitness industry, specifically people like Jeff Nippard, Lane Norton, they're going to tell you creatine does not cause hair loss. We just had one study in 2009, which was the rugby study, which I'll cover. And it was just normal DHT levels. We've never seen, hair loss be associated with any other creatine study. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Creatine is the most studied supplement. Well, if we look at this 2009 rugby study, what's really the truth behind this? It's very limited data. It was just a 3-week study on a very small amount of rugby players. But what protocol did they use? They did a basic loading phase, which I'd say, is pretty common with people doing creatine. About half of the time, people will hear about doing a loading phase and do it. So they did 7 days of creatine at 25 grams a day, and that caused a rise in DHT by 56%. Then after that, for 14 days, they did the normal dose of 5 grams a day, and DHT was still up 40%. And basically, when we look at the ratio of testosterone to DHT, it was up 36%, which pretty much is telling you, and that's during the loading phase, and then 22% during the maintenance dose. This is pretty much telling you that you're getting an increase in DHT, but you're not really getting an increase in testosterone. And what is the fitness industry doing? They're pretty much coping and pretty much just unaware of how hair loss actually works, because they're telling you, oh, it's within normal levels, even though DHT rised. It does not matter if DHT was in normal levels. If you're sensitive to DHT at the scalp, you're going to lose hair. And a 40% increase is pretty substantial. So that can be the difference between, accelerating that hair loss process and not. So if this is the only study you have, I would say I would not want to use creatine. It's enough to scare you away when you actually look at the actual implications of hair loss on your life, considering the trade-offs with how much actual muscle growth creatine is going to give you. But now we have a 2025 study that was published in April, and this, it definitely helps the case with creatine, because a lot of these fitness people, they're going to tell you that no other studies have shown creatine linked to hair loss, but that's because none of them have actually studied that. That's sort of a lie. So they really saw no significant change in DHT and testosterone levels, and they did not do a loading phase. It was only 12 weeks, and this was on about 38 participants from 18 to 40 who were sort of resistance trained. So they more or less had experience in the gym. So based on this study, you really wouldn't think you're going to have to worry about creatine. But what are the actual, implications of this? We have definitely a fair amount of limitations within the studies, but creatine is a natural supplement, guys. It's natural. You might be thinking, oh, it's natural. It's not going to cause hair loss. It's not like steroids. But my point by saying it's natural is no one goes on creatine for 12 weeks and then blows up with muscle. It is not worth losing hair or accelerating that process to get a minimalistic gym improvement, guys. I've used creatine and it pretty much did nothing visible. And most people are going to be that way, I would say. Where going on and going off is not going to make any difference to your training, cognitive performance, whatever you're really using it for. But what's the only way to really clarify this doubt? If you want to use creatine, but you're worried about hair loss, well, you can get your blood checked. That's the easiest way. But I just want to make sure everyone knows that when you listen to some of these people in the fitness industry, it's not going to be the full point. You're going to have to do some of your own research. And some of these implications of losing hair is going to be much greater than any marginal benefit you can get in muscle if you're natural. If you're on steroids, obviously we know creatine is like the least important factor. No one's going to ask you if you used creatine to build muscle for a bodybuilding show. It's steroids that are going to do that. So guys, if you're natural, creatine, be careful. Get your blood checked if you really want to use it. But if not, and you're worried about hair loss, I would just say it's not really worth it. The risk to reward is not going to do it for you. So stay tuned for future videos. I'm going to be covering some other topics